Hello, good morning, and welcome to our webinar, Interactive Storytelling. What is it, and how can we do it better?
Hopefully we'll find out in the next 45 minutes.
I think we will. So it's a live webinar, and we encourage participation. Shocker, we want this to be interactive. So as you have questions and comments, feel free to chime in the comment section or via tweet using the hashtag.
Interactive storytelling. We'd love to see your best examples. Share them with us in the audience. If we don't get to you during this show, don't worry. We'll definitely respond with you after.
Absolutely. Did you see that interactive back and forth?
It's almost like we've done this before.
Oh my God. But yeah, a full recording is going to be available on the Tagboard blog. And if you are registered for this webinar, we'll send you a copy, as well as our interactive storytelling map that's going to help you identify your objectives, your tactics, and your measurement for any interactive storytelling program across any industry.
Awesome.
So very excited to get into this. First of all, want to introduce ourselves. So my name is Kevin Shively, and like most marketers, producers, journalists, or creators, I'm a storyteller. And if you're joining us today, there's a good chance that you tell stories for a living too. Stories that connect our audience with the information that matters to them, the world around them, the products they care about, and to each other, most importantly.
I'm Christine. Kevin and I similarly come from journalism backgrounds and a little bit more of an old school age, even though it was only a few years ago.
You can tell because she's using a notebook.
Old habits die hard. Some of these still don't go away. Kevin's just saying that because normally he's the one with the notebook and he's feeling fancy today.
I'm a newspaper guy. So.
Kevin started a newspaper. I used to work in broadcast news here in Seattle. So it's been really fun to watch storytelling and the way that we both tell and the way we consume stories really change and evolve over the last few years. Mm-hmm. And now making a story interactive used to be really difficult and it used to be time consuming. Now it's really easy and it's attainable for everyone. So really excited to show you guys some ideas.
And one of the things that I love about working at Tagboard and some of the partners that we get to work with, both as customers and then just folks in the industry that we interact with on a daily basis, is how important this is to them and how advanced the techniques and tactics are getting. So we're going to walk through a lot of those. One of the things that I wanted to start with is that earlier this year, the Oscars aired a commercial that really resonated with me and obviously stuck with me because it's been a few months. But one of the lines in the promo for the Oscars was that people love stories, just so long as the people in the stories are us. And that really resonates with me because what we do and what we're talking about on this webinar is all about involving people in your stories. The end consumer, the people that the stories are about, making it interactive, letting them play with each other. And I think that's key to any quality storytelling, is really getting people involved and making them feel like they're a part of the experience.
Yeah, I'm sure we can all think of an example, whether it was on TV or in a stadium or in a commercial on TV, where you felt like someone was speaking to you rather than speaking with you. And having that two-way conversation is something that can make your story stand out among all the others.
Yep, so make it stand out, make it interactive. And what does that really mean? Obviously, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So number one, we're going to walk through the evolution of storytelling and how this has changed, mainly across the media and marketing space. Number two, what this new category is, what technology, skill sets, personnel you need to do it well, which luckily for all of us is not that much. It's relatively easy to do. Number three, mapping interactive storytelling. So we're going to give a quick sneak peek at what that map looks like, and then we're going to follow up by sending it to all of you. Number four, we're going to dig into some of our favorite examples, which is the best part of this entire thing, how people are doing it well. And then we'll close things out with a few tips. So really excited to dig into this. And Christine is an expert, works with a lot of experts around this stuff, so it's going to be a ton of fun.
Awesome, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Let's get started.
So first of all, obviously media is evolving. That is a big focus of what we're talking about here. No longer are people using this, pen and paper to tell the stories that they once were. We have completely changed the paradigm of how storytelling is done across every industry. So first, we'll dig into how this has changed over the years. We started with cave drawings. So this was all primarily a broadcast function. It was one to many. When I was drawing, and not me personally, I didn't do a lot of this. Today, that's vandalism. Drawing on caves, I was putting a story out there for other people to consume. There was no interaction. There was no play back and forth. They would consume that story on their own time. And then we jumped into traveling performers, minstrel shows. There was no real interaction with their audience there. They'd come to a town, they would tell you a story. The only interaction was that the king might kill you if you did a bad job. Maybe people would applaud. Then we started to get into some of the more traditional media, so newspapers, radio, television. Again, this was all a broadcast function. It was one to many, and there was no direct feedback from the consumer. There was no involvement of the person on the other end, and for the most part, it didn't involve the people that the stories were about. So it was a news anchor sitting at a desk. It was a marketer telling you about what a customer did in a case study. And you didn't have that interaction and that real social proof right in front of you about what's happening in the real world.
Yeah, for those of you joining from a newsroom or the media industry, you know what an MOS is. For those of you not, it stands for man on the street. You know, it's Joe Schmo who reacts to a story, who interjects his voice. And, you know, in a newsroom a few years ago, in order to get that authentic human voice, you actually got these MOSs. You went out on the street with a camera and you asked questions. You guys may have seen, you know, Jay Leno do that in his segments in the past years. But by the time you came back with that film and you edited it and you cut it, the story had drastically changed in many cases, and that reaction, those MOSs, were dated. And now social media allows you to do that in real time. Basically, it's real-time MOSs that don't require cameramen to go out and ask people on the street and go through that. It's something that you can do instantly, right away, real time, as we like to say, and it makes the whole thing interactive.
And I think one of the most important parts about that is mainly because of social media, the news cycle is quicker. Your marketing programs have to involve more content. You have to be in front of people more frequently than you used to. So in order to tell good, engaging stories, you need that immediacy and the ability to interact in real time and make those stories participatory.
Yeah, the good news is it's easier than it ever has been. So we'll show some examples of how that can be done.
Oh, can't wait. Okay, so first of all, this is a very dramatic slide, by the way. Welcome to the future of storytelling. But what does that actually mean? What is interactive storytelling? So let's start with a quick definition. Interactive storytelling is a story that is told as it develops. So it unfolds as a direct result of either the subject, the person that the story is about, or the consumer's participation with the narrative. So it's not somebody sitting at a desk telling you a story. It's an interactive experience where me as a consumer, whether I'm sitting on a couch in a sports stadium or being interviewed in real time via live stream, via social media, via actually man on the street interview, can happen in real time and influence where the story goes.
Yeah, this is something that we see a lot more too. Back when I was in the newsroom, we called it process storytelling. And it wasn't just recapping a script of what happened. It was bringing the viewer into the process that you went through to arrive at your story. So kind of being really authentic, being really open, and allowing them to see the process you went through, which also gains you some authenticity where they believe you, and it gains you that trust with your viewer because you actually brought them into your process and allows them then to interact with how you told the story rather than just what the words you were saying were.
Yep. So one of the interesting things coming from the print journalism space and the media space, and as a marketer, is that interactive storytelling for a while meant a dynamic web page that had a story on it, and there was some scroll jacking, and pieces would move as you would scroll through it. Yes, technically that's interactive because the story is unfolding due to your action, due to your scroll, and due to the way you interact with the page. But it's evolved so far beyond that in the last few years with the evolution of artificial intelligence and augmented reality, social media becoming the primary channel which people communicate and tell their own stories on now. And I think that's the crux of it. So right now, people are telling real stories, their own stories in real time. So these stories aren't just coming from a nameless, faceless brand or a media property. They're coming from the fans who are in the stand, who are interacting with the game, who are giving their own hot takes. The viewers who are at home, who are watching on TV, who are interacting on their second screens, tweeting along with an event. The players, the celebrities, the politicians who are setting policy live on Twitter, terrifyingly. All of these stories are unfolding in front of our eyes. They're unfolding across social media, and that is a massive, massive value to any storyteller.
Yeah, on one hand, you guys are creating and putting out original, authentic stories on your own. But on another hand, this great content is already there. So how can you harness that story that's already being told organically and just harness it to redirect value for your message?
And some of the major media companies, major marketers and storytellers in the world have been evolving along with this ability and developing programs that are really shaping this industry and shaping this entire category. So when we talk about interactive storytelling, as it pertains to social media specifically, we start with the storyteller. So that's you. So what used to just be, as a reporter or a producer or a marketer, you would compose a story and then you would publish that to your audience. Now, what we're doing is going out and looking for those diverse and unique perspectives that we wouldn't necessarily be able to bring into our own story ourselves.
Yeah, I'd be ignorant if I thought my perspective could tell the entire story. Oftentimes, even with stories we're telling here at Tagboard, videos we're putting together, tweets we're putting out, I need to ask a bunch of people in the office who come from different backgrounds and different niches to understand how they would perceive the story I'm trying to tell. And oftentimes they take it entirely differently than how I had originally intended it.
Yep, and I think that's something that we're starting to recognize as a culture, as well as as marketers and storytellers, where we're focus grouping and A/B testing things. We also understand that there are so many different perspectives, and our cultural differences, our backgrounds, really influence how we perceive stories. So being able to understand that, and more than that, incorporate those diverse voices into your stories is huge. So from there, we go to crafting the story. So you have people's input, you have their involvement, you have these diverse perspectives as part of your story. A big piece of this now is making it cross-channel. So distributing this everywhere you can. There are connected screens all around us. So it's not the olden days when we would publish the Sunday newspaper and that's where everybody got their news. Or when TV became the dominant channel where people would get all of their news, consume all of their stories directly from their TV set between 5 and 8 p.m. every night.
Yeah, I mean, I challenge you to even just look around the space you're sitting in and see how many different opportunities for screens there are rather than just a television set. You know, in stadiums, we think of the Jumbotron first, we forget about concourse screens. The screen I actually look at the most is when I'm standing in line waiting for a hot dog and a beer and there's a static graphic right in front of me. You know, in TV, sure, there's one big screen, but we forget about utilizing side set monitors and video monitors that are built on these beautiful sets that can all be harnessed to tell a story.
Or even within that one screen, you have so much real estate there. What are you doing with that? How are you using it to keep people engaged, keep them involved, even during commercial breaks, whatever it might be? Yeah. And I think, I mean, you look at the screen you're watching right now. I have a laptop in front of me. There's a screen behind us. Christine has an Apple Watch on. So many different ways to get in front of people these days. We probably both have phones in our pockets too. There are screens everywhere. How can you create a story that runs a steel thread through all of those experiences and is unique to that experience as well? So what you're going to put up on a concourse screen above the hot dog stand is going to be, let's be honest, the beer stand is going to be wildly different than what you're going to put on the Jumbotron.
Exactly.
Because you're trying to create a different type of experience for people when they're not on the field, when they're not watching the actual gameplay.
Yeah. Exactly. You know, above a hot dog stand, I have time maybe to take out my phone and scan a QR code to take me somewhere because I have that moment to interact with the screen. Above the Jumbotron, I may want to see a social scroll of stats from around the league to know what's happening. There are different ways to kind of offer value to your viewer depending on what they're doing in that moment.
Absolutely. So then once you've created this story and you've figured out your distribution plan across all these different screens, you want to get people in front of it. You want it to reach the right audience and as many people within that right audience as possible. And not only so they share it with their audience and they buy your products and they consume, but also because those are the people that you want to feed back into the story. So give you feedback in real time and help you create that story on the fly and change the direction of it.
Yeah, and then thinking about how your audiences differ from platform to platform, from screen to screen. Is one audience younger or older? Do they skew more male or female? Are they people who are at home during the day or they're at home at night? How can you custom tailor the storytelling on each different outlet to meet that group of viewers where they are?
Yep, absolutely. So as we're talking about this new category and this new way of doing things, there are a few things that you want to put in place. And as I mentioned, it's not that difficult. Interactive storytelling and the ability to reach people across these different screens is relatively easy. We're doing it in a conference room right now. This doesn't require a multi-million-dollar studio. You can do it with that, and it'll probably look pretty sharp.
Yeah, we're throwing out big words, AR and VR and all this interactive and concourse and Jumbotron. If you're at home and you're thinking, I don't have any of those things, wait to see the next 3 slides because it's going to change your perspective on what's actually needed, like what the barrier to entry is to put a really good story together.
Yeah.
It's not that large.
What we're going to start with here is the technology side. And what I would say is there are some great vendors out there that can help you do all of this and will work with you in relatively reasonable terms as a business. So number one, social media. Obviously, this is going to be a primary channel where you're going to find these stories, where people are sharing these stories, whether they're celebrities, influencers, your fans, so you can leverage those. But also, this is a great way to get that real-time feedback and distribute your story back out there. Number two, digital integration, so web and mobile. If you're a marketer, you obviously have a relatively good grasp on the different channels at your disposal. These are huge. You want those touch points to be consistent with the rest of the narratives that you're telling. It's also probably going to be your point of sale. So that's a spot that you want to get people to. On the media side and the news side, where have you seen people leverage that the most? The web and mobile piece of that.
You know, a lot of it is twofold. Things that live all the time, whether it's digital experience, social digital experiences that are built out on landing pages within an app, you know, places where your visitors are going all the time to get information immediately, as well as web and mobile live streaming.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day, it was appointment viewing. You waited until 5 p.m. to break a story, and you expected people were going to be at home on their couch watching. Nowadays, it's not the case. People are listening to podcasts on their way home from work. They are checking Twitter to see if a story broke. If that story was compelling enough, and if you tell an engaging enough story, they're clicking through to your website and they're expecting to see a deeper evolution of the seed of that story. So, you know, leveraging whether it's your website, whether it's your mobile app, whether it's live streams, whether it's OTT, but thinking beyond just digital must be a static social embed of 4 or 5 tweets and posts. You know, it's not like that anymore.
Yeah, and I think there's this holistic cross-channel approach. You hear cross-channel day in, day out. If you work in marketing, media, digital, whatever it might be, the ability to tell a consistent story across all of those is profitable. That's how you sell these cross-channel ad platforms, cross-channel ad programs that your advertisers also want to leverage the human side of the story too. They don't just want to work with a nameless, faceless media organization.
And I think it's interesting to think about the freedom that sometimes digital allows you. You know, especially in a traditional news broadcast, you may only still have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to tell a concise story, and there's so many facts that you have to tell in that. There's no reason why you can't extend the story to viewers who are interested in your storytelling and say, join me on Facebook Live as soon as this broadcast ends. I'm the reporter, I'm the expert, and I have so much knowledge to share that I wasn't able to in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And I'm going to be doing a Facebook Live that is 100% driven off of your questions. And we've seen that work really well with reporters, with investigative reporters who spend months researching something and have all this knowledge to share, with election 2020 coming up, with political experts, with meteorologists, whatever it is, using that digital freedom to have a little bit more time, to have a little bit more interaction than maybe is allowed in a traditional medium.
Yeah. I think in traditional broadcasts and like big, massive cultural events, so even if we're talking about, say, The Bachelor, you'll get a lot of people sharing their thoughts and a spike in virality and interaction across social media as it's happening. But what we're seeing from a lot of the big media companies and even brands and smaller properties are building these OTT platforms where they can keep a library of really good content. You also want to engage with your audience there and let them interact even though it's not a live experience.
Yeah, definitely. That was also Kevin's subtle way of telling you he's a huge Bachelor fan.
I am a huge Bachelor fan. Excited about this pilot guy. Okay, so then we dig down into digital out of home and display. And when you think of this, you're probably thinking of big Times Square spots, big, massive digital billboards. Not all of us have budget for that. But as Christine mentioned earlier, there are screens all around us. Look around your office, look in the lobby of your building, look around town. There are so many different places that we can engage with people. If you have a retail storefront, I'm sure you have display screens around or access to them. And finally, some of the more forward-looking stuff, augmented reality. So I think there are really interesting things happening there, from things as simple as Snapchat lenses, Instagram filters, things like that, down to really immersive campaigns. We're going to touch on a few of those in a little bit. And then production. So you need some production skills, some production software, whether it's broadcast, digital, live stream, whatever the case might be. These are some of the things that you want to be able to have the right tech for.
And I, coming from that background, I geek out over that stuff. So if you guys are just getting started or not really sure where to get started, please reach out to us. We're happy to help recommend software, hardware, the simple things that you need just to get started. It can range in budget. It can be from free all the way to I have a tens of thousands of dollar budget that I can pull from. If you check out our YouTube page, we can take you on a tour of our studio, which is actually a conference room named after a Ninja Turtle, where we've got 2 lights, a camera, and a TV behind us. It can be really simple, but it can be made to look really professional for however much you want to put into it.
I think you'll be amazed at how easy it is to get a simple, cheap start, learn the tactics, and then build as you go. You don't have to start with the multi-million-dollar studio. And moving on to the second section is staff. So a lot of the big storytellers at big media companies, news organizations, sports teams, brands, agencies, et cetera, have started to recognize the need for staff on hand that is trained in real-time marketing, content, storytelling, as well as the interactive piece. So getting people engaged and involved in that.
We had recently NFL Network's Catherine Chan Smith join us in our studio on our series Storyteller. And she talked about this idea that storytelling is a muscle. And it's a muscle that you can exercise and build and grow and massage. And it's not something that happens overnight, that all of a sudden you tell brilliant stories and people are listening everywhere. Yep. But it's something that's built up and it's exercised. So wherever your staff or your skill level is, it's a starting point and continue to build and massage that muscle.
Yep. I saw a great quote from somebody at an agency on LinkedIn yesterday that basically said, yes, I can do this thing in 30 seconds, but it took me 30 years to learn how to do it in 30 seconds. You're paying me for the 30 years of experience. So getting your team trained up and the right people on staff to handle this type of a production, this type of a program, is going to make your interactive experiences so much better for your consumers. Which, perfect segue, ties us right into the skill set. So when we talk about the skill sets that you want these people to have, live production and linear editing, obviously, if you're going to be doing a lot of live streaming or broadcast work. Social media and community, I think a lot of times we can overlook this and think of it as a junior skill set. It's not, and everything is happening in real time on social right now. You need somebody who understands the ins and outs of the platform and the tactics and the way that you engage with people, how you request rights if you're trying to get access to a piece of content that you can use in your storytelling, as well as digital marketing and the storytelling fundamentals that you mentioned, Kat chatted about a couple weeks ago. So when you have those pieces in place and understand what you actually need to do, you can really get into some of the fun stuff and start building out a program. This is the foundation. So you set that, and then you can start building a house on top of it. And we're going to share this with every registrant of the webinar later on. But what we're going to be sending out is an actual map that, depending on your industry, is going to help you understand what objectives and goals and different types of content you should be putting together, which audiences you should be targeting to bring in those diverse perspectives, and then also who are you sharing it with, what you're doing with it, and how you measure success. So this is the big stuff for building a foundation. There will be a worksheet so you can easily go through this all yourself and start to understand how it works. Christine.
My favorite part.
Your favorite part. Let's get into some of the fun stuff here. So now we're going to talk about who's doing it best, some of our favorite examples from the interactive storytelling space. And this spans a lot of different tactics, some that we were involved with, some that we weren't, and just stuff that we're geeking out about and really excited about.
I think of these as kind of get the creative wheels spinning, even though it may be an application in terms of media or sports or whatnot. Kind of look at the core idea of what it was and how it could apply to the story you're trying to tell at home.
In fact, I would recommend that. Look outside of your specific industry, because there are people doing really innovative stuff across every single industry in the world. And there are pieces that you can take from that that's going to give you a leg up on whoever you're competing against.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's take a look at this first one. Christine, this is an example from the Overwatch League Esports.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites, and I feel like it's really timely right now, especially with the Overwatch League Grand Finals coming up this weekend. For those of you who aren't as privy to Overwatch, it is, imagine a massive major league sport played in a live arena with, hundreds and hundreds of screaming active fans who are there. their audience, both digital and real life in person, is huge. So what's unique about this activation was it was a real-time hashtag battle. And they asked their viewers to vote for the team they were rooting for here using one of these two designated hashtags. We've seen social polling done before. What makes this one unique is they executed this in two different, cross-channel, in two different places. On one side, they were doing this live in their arena. And they put it up on the screen, and the producers got a real-time payoff. They heard the audience roar when they saw the team that had been announced as the winner of this fan battle. Mm-hmm. The other side was...
You're talking about gamers here, too.
Who are
they
so
love the
into
competitive
it, right?
experience.
And, gamifying the game for the fans.
Right.
It's kind of like this inception. But not everybody can be at the arena, and not everybody can have that experience. So Overwatch League wanted to extend it to the thousands and thousands and millions of viewers who are watching on a live stream, on OTT, on cable broadcast, and they put it as part of their broadcast stream. Mm-hmm. And not only was it part of the broadcast stream, but it's a hashtag battle. It's social, so it's global. So they got votes coming from all over the country and world. So they gave their viewers at home a way to participate in what was actually happening in arena, no matter where they were sitting. So it was a really, really cool activation.
Yeah, great for getting people involved. You're also adding exposure for your brand because all of these people are tweeting using your hashtag. Their friends are seeing it. This is just a great way to gamify virality and get in front of more and more people. Spinning into the real world space, not that esports isn't, but moving from broadcast and an arena into outside the arena. So this is a T-Mobile activation at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, and they wanted to bring the experience from in-venue out into the courtyard outside for people who didn't have tickets. So they were getting their brand messaging in front of people, but also so many folks were there to celebrate this new team that was in town, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and to participate in that experience and get hyped and get excited for them. This was a great way for T-Mobile to capitalize on that and remind people that T-Mobile Magenta is everywhere.
And I love this. Think about when you walk into a sports arena, how many screens you actually see and walk by before you end up inside in your seat. There's so many ways to create a 360-degree experience from the moment you leave your house, which is really neat. The other thing I love about that one, and it kind of shines through in the next example as well, is instead of showing one social post at a time, they found a way to weave hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of social posts, basically weave it into this tapestry that showed the whole conversation. So if you look at this example here from Zed's tour, that one cohesive picture of the silhouette of Zed is made up of thousands of individual social posts. So it was this literal concept of every single one of you who's posting is part of a larger community and part of a larger conversation. And it was a way to actually visualize that up on screen. So it's just a really cool kind of way to demonstrate that.
Yeah, one of the things that I love about this one is when you think about the audience at a concert, and always start with your audience regardless of the industry, the folks who are going to a Zed concert want to feel connected to Zed. They want to feel like they're a part of that experience. So bringing them physically together on this screen so they are a part of this massive collage of the artist that they love so much, great way to do that. It gets people really connected to the experience.
Absolutely.
All right, shifting gears into another tactic. This is something that I'm sure you've all heard of, Reddit's AMA series.
Yeah, so AMA, in case you haven't heard of it, Ask Me Anything. This is a way where, whether it is, in this example, Bill Gates, whether it's a major political figure, we're seeing a lot of election 2020 candidates jumping onto Reddit AMAs. Whether it's athletes, we're seeing NFL players with the start of the season, NASCAR drivers, all of these different really, really engaged communities. And how it works, if you're not a Reddit user, is one of these prominent influencers jumps into a Reddit thread and answers questions. They take questions from, Joe Schmo at home who's interested, and Reddit has found a way to give people at home this unprecedented access to people who they never otherwise would have brushed shoulders with. And talk about, it's interactive on a next level of allowing them to engage and actually, wow, can you believe so-and-so answered my question? And so these are already happening on Reddit, whether you know it or not. If you don't know it, log on, read some of them. They're fascinating and really entertaining. But since they're already there and they're already happening, if they pertain to your brand, your sport, your broadcast, there's no reason you can't bring that content and bring it into your story. We talk about you don't always have to create the story from the ground up. Sometimes the story already exists, and you just have to harness it and use it.
Yeah, our next example is a perfect example of that, where it's that real-time feedback and engagement, but the person who sees it, Kyler Murray in this case, gets to experience along with the fans that very special moment for him, and you get to feel like you're a part of that.
This is one of my personal favorites, especially tag board favorites. For NFL fans, you know what this is. Non-NFL fans, Kyler Murray was the very first draft pick in this year's NFL draft. And typically in the media world, after this big moment has happened, you go through what they call a car wash. And you essentially walk down a string of interview after interview after interview. Every network gets their moment with you to ask you the same questions. In this case, NFL Network wanted to do something a little bit different, and instead of just another car wash interview, they popped Kyler Murray in front of an interactive touch screen that was full of social comments that were coming from his future team members, his old team members from college, diehard fans of the team that were so excited and couldn't wait to see him on the field in their color. And then this player who typically is an athlete who we see wearing a helmet stone-faced on game day, we got a really, really human reaction from him, where he got to have this really organic reaction to things people were saying. And then the trickle down is everybody at home saw, oh, I should tweet because my tweet could actually be put in front of Kyler Murray. And if you're a huge Cardinals fan, that's a really cool moment.
I think one of my favorite parts of the Storyteller episode that Chris mentioned earlier with Kat, just another plug here, was her talking about this story. They actually stopped the interview with Kyler Murray and just had a minute where he was just reveling at all of this feedback from his fans, from his friends that was coming in on social media, because he hadn't had a chance to stop and digest all of this yet.
Yeah.
So
just a really organic moment.
Yeah. An easy way to get that experience for somebody influential in your space. So switching gears to the digital side, as a part of their broader campaign, the Dolphins have Fins Gear Friday, where they show their fans literally across a landing page on their website wearing their different merchandise that they've obviously purchased that has benefited the Miami Dolphins. So this is a great business move, but it's also a good way to get your fans involved and engaged and feel like they're a part of the action even when it's not game day, bringing it back to digital.
And it's so built into the digital experience you see here, but I want to point out that there is a sponsorship. And sponsors, something like this is a unique opportunity for a sponsor to attach themselves to a community and to a thematic voice rather than attaching themselves to a side strip graphic or a backsplash. It's something that is really human.
Yeah, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. We trust stories from people more than we trust stories from brands. There's been a lot of research done on this, but it's also like if you just think about it intuitively, I trust a recommendation from Christine more than I trust a recommendation from, an ad from a retail superstore on Instagram. So great way for them to bring that in. Next example, also switching gears again, this is really exciting one. I think the premise here, using augmented reality to make fans feel like they're a part of the Spider-Man Into the Multiverse movie that came out about a year ago, probably at this point. So I met the company that does this at an event a couple weeks ago. It's their Eighth Wall, I believe is their name. But the basic premise is that you use a QR code and then you're immediately pulled into this experience where Spider-Man joins you in the room and he can climb all over the walls. He can stand next to somebody on your camera. And it's a really fun way to make people feel like they're involved with whatever you're promoting, but also just enjoy the experience and be immersed in this story that you're trying to tell.
Yeah, and these are the types of things where when people see it, they want to go tell their friends and they want to go post about it on social. So they organically do your own promotion by sharing it with their friends.
Yeah, we saw some really cool activations from Snapchat at the NBA All-Star Weekend this year where you would hold up your Snapchat camera to a QR code or a snap code, excuse me, and there would be a photo of a player on a wall that would animate and dunk a basketball. And it was just really cool, simple ways for people to engage with your experience and feel like they're a part of it. And up next, I would like to talk about something that's very near and dear to your heart, Christine. So this is the Choose Your News campaign that the Cronkite Labs put together, our good friend Frank down there. So tell me a little bit about what we're looking at and what they did here.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. It's the news lab down at Arizona State University, and it's a team of students who are they're really pushing the envelope on how we innovate and storytell. And what's really fascinating about this newscast is it was 100% driven by viewers. So they launched
viewers like me?
Viewers like you.
All
They
right.
launched the newscast with, 3 or 4 different stories, and while those stories were airing live, there were polls. There were opportunities to engage on the screen asking, are you interested by this story? Do you want to know more about this story? What kinds of questions do you have for XYZ who you saw us interview in this story? But they didn't, oftentimes we see those polls, but there isn't necessarily always a payoff. There was a huge payoff on this. They took the results they were getting from their viewers in real time, and then they went and that determined what the next segment of the newscast would be. So if they saw huge interest on an original story, that would be the next story that they'd air to start the next block. Yes, it did require a lot of extra work on their end because they had to account for every single one of those stories potentially being selected, and they needed to have the follow-up piece for every single one of those stories. But, as Frank said in a case study, that work didn't go in vain. They took that, they were able to repurpose it on digital. We talk about this cross-channel idea. They repurposed it on digital, but they were able to create a Choose Your Own Adventure newscast that was full of meaningful work.
Love a Choose Your Own Adventure.
One of the coolest things I think that came out of it that they pointed out in their case study was that oftentimes we don't ask ourselves the question, like, is my story resonating with the viewers? We ask that, but we don't ever really get the answer. They actually got the answer of, will the viewers be engaged by my story? And if the answer was yes, that story got to continue and evolve throughout the newscast. If the answer was no, that story lived on digital. But it was a true answer to, will the viewers be engaged by the way I'm telling this story? And it's a question that we should probably ask ourselves more often, even if it's not a Choose Your Own Adventure. But will my audience be engaged by the story I'm telling, or am I just engaged by the story that I'm telling?
And I think one of my favorite lessons from that is that they did so much prep work for this. A lot of times we think about real-time and interactive content as, oh, I need to put this together on the fly. It's reactive to something that happened. It doesn't have to be. You can prep for real-time marketing, real-time storytelling in general, and you can make sure you're set up for success, and that's where you're going to get the best content.
Yeah, and this was on steroids because they did this live Choose Your Own Adventure within the confines of a 30-minute newscast. In the real world, we may not be able to execute this on a daily basis, but could you have a Friday afternoon segment where you did that piece, ask the question, ask your viewers for engagement, and then the next Friday followed up with whatever their response was? That's something that may be a little bit more reasonable for newsrooms or media or marketers around the country, but know that it can all be done in whatever timeline is available to you.
Yep. Christine, I think we have time for one more example. And since we've been talking about choosing your own adventures, I want to talk about my favorite example from the summer that was just pure storytelling. It happened within Twitter. It was not branded by any means. It was just somebody who had a great idea and wanted to tell a fun story.
And I'm willing to bet a lot of you saw this at home. You did this.
Oh,
Maybe you were also fired like Kevin and I were.
Yep, several times. Played this a lot of times. So this Twitter user put together a game within Twitter using threaded tweets that let you be Beyonce's assistant for the day and choose your own adventure by clicking into different tweet threads to see whether or not you would get fired or if you would last the day. So it was just a blast of an experience, and I got fired several times. And
I was never hired.
We're actually getting a comment from Michael right now who says that his assistant, or a friend of his, was Beyonce's assistant. I would like to know if she was fired or if she lasted throughout the day. So I obviously got fired, and you'd get really fun experiences about how you got fired, why you got fired. It was just entertaining, pure entertainment at its best.
And it doesn't take much to execute something like this. It went viral. It got a lot of attention. It cost them nothing. It was threaded tweets. It was somebody who was sat down and figured out a really interesting, compelling story that could get people to click through. weave your message in through that.
Yep.
And it's a very simple way to tell a really interactive story.
Good news, Michael's friend Steph did not get fired. She lasted 4 years, says Beyonce's amazing. Very, very proud member of the Bayhive. Okay. So those are some of our favorite examples of interactive storytelling, but as you can tell, there are so many directions you can take it, and basically what you can come up with is the limit here. As long as you're involving people and making them feel a part of the experience, you're going to see success.
Definitely.
So as we wrap up, want to leave you with 5 quick tips that will help you put together this program. And as I mentioned, we'll send around that map and a worksheet that will help you really put this down on paper and formulate a plan. But the first thing that you want to focus on is to seek out diverse perspectives. So find different people telling stories than just yourself or the people inside the building. I have an old mentor that used to say the answer isn't in the building, and it's so right. You'll always find a better perspective outside of the building that you can leverage for your storytelling.
Yeah, you heard us talk about this on several different occasions. Just because you enjoy your story doesn't mean your audience is going to enjoy your story.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. What do they care about? A lot of times they care about being involved and being heard. Point number 2, don't silo the experience. Involve your audience across every channel that you have, whether it's web, mobile, digital, real life, broadcast, live stream. There's so many different touch points these days, and make sure there's a steel thread running through all of them, but also that it's catered to the audience on those channels. Number 3, incentivize participation and inclusion. Sometimes this is as simple as what Overwatch was doing, just creating a contest. People like to feel involved. They want to feel like they're a part of a team. The Fins Gear section on the Dolphins website makes people feel like they're a part of this experience. Sometimes you can add contests, you can add gamification, and you can add all these different ways to get people involved, but you have to make it worth it to them. So as long as you keep your audience in mind, you're going to be in good shape.
Sometimes it's just as simple as when you put out a call out asking your viewers or your fans or your audience to use a hashtag, responding so they know they've been heard. You know, BuzzFeed, we were chatting with Jake Bunger there, and he talked about sometimes it's just our viewers knowing that we're reading your comments, we're reading your tweets, they're useful, they're valuable, they're part of the conversation. We'll pull a few and put 3 or 4 up on our live stream, but just so the viewers know they've been heard.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite programs that we didn't actually get to in the example section is the Fandango Rotten Tomatoes Your Opinion Sucks show, which I had a fun experience of seeing a live taping of that at South by Southwest. And they pull audience feedback and comments from their audience at home, but also for us in venue onto the screen to ask questions of and make fun of the celebrities that they're interviewing. And it makes it a really fun experience. It makes you feel like you're heard. It makes you feel like you're a part of it. And it gamifies it because you want to be the tweet with the funniest GIF that they pull up on screen. I got a couple up there.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
Humble brag.
Humble brag. Number 4, as I mentioned, focus on experience. If you're not focusing on how this interaction is going to feel with your audience, they're going to tune out. So whether it's a live broadcast or a live stream or just them being on your website, they're not going to buy your product. They're not going to keep interacting with you. You're not going to retain them unless they feel like it's a good experience. So focus on that first. User experience is always paramount. And finally, last tip before we leave you, make it immersive. So make this an experience that they are going to feel involved in and deeply connected to. And that is the best type of story out there.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, we're all human. We all want to tell and hear and consume great stories. So have fun.
Have fun. And we will see you next time. Look for the recording, look for the map, look for the worksheet, and we are very excited to talk to you again.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.